primary accounts record an Achaemenid queen ordering the brutal disfigurement of her rival, nose, ears, lips, breasts, even tongue, an act that sparked a doomed revolt and became a byword for royal terror. Herodotus 9:112, Encyclopedia Iranica. History is strewn with empires that conquered with legions, yet only a handful mastered the conquest of minds. When cruelty in antiquity crosses our thoughts, we sprint to Rome, its arenas, its crucifixions, its auction blocks. Rome was savage on that point, there is no dispute. But turn your gaze east, toward the vast Achaemenid Persian Empire, and you meet a terror as chilling, perhaps colder still. The Persians did not always reach for fetters and scourges. They perfected war of the spirit, breaking enemies from the inside out. And their targets were not only generals or kings, but wives, daughters, entire households. Here the story descends deeply, when conquest shifted from soil to souls. The Persian monarchs, Cyrus, Darius, Xerxes, were more than sovereigns. They styled themselves kings of kings. Their word had to be absolute, unchallenged, unending, so punishment could not end on the field. No, the truest punishment arrived after the banners fell and the dust lay still. In those quiet hours following victory, Persia struck its cruelest blow, shattering legacy, pride and honor in one calculated act. Let us pass it, the final humiliation, the royal harem. Picture a queen, a princess, a ruler's wife, silk for skin, palaces for rooms, power for air. Then, collapse. Your realm is taken, your husband chained, and you, not sold like a Roman chattel, but led into the Persian king's harem. It sounds like splendor, gold, servants, tables heavy with food. Do not be deceived. The harem was no paradise. It was a gilded cell, no exits, constant eyes. You existed as a living trophy, a daily reminder that the King of Kings had crushed your house and possessed all you once embodied. The symbol bit deep. By seizing the wives and daughters of defeated thrones, the Persian king declared, "Your dynasty, mine. Your tomorrow, mine. Even your blood now flows into my line." And sometimes these captives were not mere emblems. They were pieces on the board. Children born of these unions, half Persian, half royal, could be planted as pliant rulers back home. A dynasty erased, a new one written over the ruins. Babylon's fall, 539 BC. When Cyrus the Great took the city, the last king, Nabonidus, was bound in defeat. Sources diverge, but many hold that his household, wife and daughters among them, was absorbed into Cyrus's court. The message thundered. Babylon's line was finished. Its women now breathed under Persia's shadow. Herodotus and later chronicles differ on details, yet the absorption of royal families into the conqueror's court is consistent with Achaemenid practice of elite incorporation. Source: Bryant, From Cyrus to Alexander, 2002, pp. 5460. If the harem was the cage, mutilation was the blade. Few acts crushed a rival house more completely than maiming its women. Beauty, rank, identity destroyed in a single stroke. History hands us a nightmare, the tale of Queen Amestris. Herodotus, the Greek historian, writes of Xerxes Faunce, the same Xerxes who met the Spartans at Thermopylae. Xerxes strayed. He coveted the wife of his brother, Masistes. When seduction failed, he married his own son to Masistes' daughter, Artaiante. But when Xerxes' wife, Queen Amestris, learned of his passion, fury consumed her. What followed chills the blood. Amestris demanded Masistes' wife be surrendered to her. Then, with a cruelty calculated to annihilate, she ordered the woman's nose, ears, lips and breasts cut away, sending her back to her husband unrecognizable, undone. This was more than private vengeance. It was symbolic erasure. Amestris tore away identity, beauty, humanity itself. Macystes, ablaze with rage, attempted revolt. Xerxes crushed him and butchered his kin. One mutilation, one lineage wiped from the page. The episode appears in Herodotus, Histories 9:108-113, our earliest extended account of Achaemenid court vengeance, Greek and hostile, yet the motif of dynastic annihilation through bodily maiming is explicit. Source, Herodotus, Histories 9:108-113. When Persia meant to make an example, it did not whisper. It spoke for the whole empire to hear. Rebels, pretenders, traitors, impaled or crucified in public. And often the sentence spread to wives and children. Bodies rotted on stakes beyond the gates. Roads became corridors of spears and corpses, a terror that taught. Consider the Behistun inscription, carved on a mountain in Iran, at Darius the Great's command. The monument does more than tally victories. It displays defeated kings bound and humbled, some doomed to the stake, others to the sword. This was not mere record. It was propaganda hammered into stone. Any traveler who lifted his eyes knew the price of resistance. The old Persian text at Behistun explicitly mentions executions, including impalement of rebels like Frada. The relief shows captives bound before Darius. Source, Kurt, The Persian Empire, 2007, Volume 1, pt 142-151, DB inscription. Why the devastation cut so deep? Rome turned persons into property. Persia often reached for something deeper. Its cruelty targeted identity, beauty, blood. By mutilating queens, Persia robbed whole societies of their most potent symbols. A queen was not merely a woman. She embodied grace, fertility, dynasty. Break her, and you break hope. By sweeping defeated women into the harem, Persia ended royal lines and wrote its own in their place. By punishing families as well as rulers, Persia made revolt a sentence across generations. Who would rise if rising meant children must suffer? This was cruelty with design, obedience carved out by dread. If Rome was an empire of chains, Persia was an empire of shadows. Rome auctioned slaves in the open. Persia hid queens behind screens. Rome mocked the vanquished in arenas. Persia mutilated them in palaces. Rome nailed rebels to crosses. Persia raised forests of stakes for entire houses. Different methods, same end. Total control. It is easy to file these stories under distant, a haze of legend. Pause. Listen to the silence within those chambers. Imagine a young princess who once dreamed of ruling, now sealed in a Persian harem, barred from daylight forever. Imagine a husband watching his maimed wife stagger home to him. That is not myth. That is grief in its rawest form. Yes, the Persians built roads, palaces, a realm that summoned awe. But beneath marble and gold lay a machinery of fear, one that crushed not only armies but lines of descent. When we review the empires of old, glory tempts us, power dazzles, yet honesty demands its due. The Persians, like the Romans, wielded cruelty as instrument, but theirs was not always rope and lash. It was psychological ruin, seizing wives, mutilating queens, impaling families. They did not merely conquer peoples, they erased legacies. And perhaps that is the most horrifying lesson of all. Not the sword flashing on the field, but the quiet cruelty that followed within palaces. For long after the blood dried, fear remained, and that is why, even now, the Persian art of breaking enemies leaves us stunned into silence.